be, I guess, a link from Kaltura that I can email out to everyone because we have your names. So, what we're going to talk about today is this particular program, which actually we've had for many years at UIS. There seems to be, I found out just this morning, the provost's email maybe generated some confusion that this was a new program. This is just a renamed program, but we've had this for 15 years. So we're going to talk about this particular program, and then we'll have time for questions, and we could get specific questions about, what projects you might want to do, and also maybe some general tips on grant writing and budgeting and stuff. So this is the Competitive Scholarly Research Grants Program, which used to be the Summer Competitive Scholarly Research Grants Program. And this year, in discussions with the research board, I got a lot of feedback about faculty wanting more flexibility. So this year we're going to try 3 tracks, and I'll explain the tracks in a little bit. But the purpose is, there's 2 purposes: scholarly growth of faculty, and then also professional development of students. So in particular for research, creative activities, and the teacher-scholar model that we have here at UIS. We're looking for new areas or revitalization of your research area, and knowledge to inform public policy. Well, okay, perhaps that's not the limit of the focus. If that's what your research does, that's good. But there's not going to be a preference for public policy research. So So all Boyer categories of scholarship: discovery, application, integration, and teaching. I'll put a little plug in. In a couple weeks, there's the SEAL workshop, the Community of Innovative Engaged Learning workshop. You should have received a ton of emails inviting you to register. Part of that workshop is going to be a series of conversations, and I'll be having a conversation about scholarship of teaching. So if you have questions about how that works, we can come to my session. Also about how the research that you're proposing that we can help fund could help prepare you for external funding applications. Since the focus is on research or creative activities, curriculum development would not be appropriate or funded for this program. And then scholarly growth of students. So this is one of our focus. We'd like to see this. It's not a requirement. You do not have to include students in your project. And actually, we decided we're not even going to prefer that. Personally, I prefer if you include students in your research. But in general, this program, if you don't have students, you can still apply. We're not going to penalize you for not including students in research. But the idea is that the students that you include would contribute to your research area, but then you also need to describe how their work with you, that you're mentoring them so that they can develop professionally, they can learn research skills, so that would have to be, if you are including students, then you need to include a description of how you're including the students. So the 3 tracks, okay. So the traditional summer track, and these dates are based on our academic calendar. So the summer track would start at the conclusion of this semester and go through till the beginning of the fall semester. So it's more flexible than just the summer semester, summer session. Academic year track would be this coming fall semester through next spring semester, and then year-round would include this summer. So it'd start this summer, go through fall and spring. They all have the same submission deadline, and we'll get to deadlines and dates and criteria, those details in a little bit. They have different reporting deadlines, and you can only apply to one of the tracks. So you want to think about your project. Well, yeah, I'll go into each track a little more depth, but you want to think about your project that you're proposing and which time frame would be most appropriate. So the traditional summer track, the advantage is you have usually a lower teaching load, so you have more time to focus on your research. You could hopefully you could hire a student, and they could have more time to dedicate to the research because they don't have a bunch of other classes and things going on. There's more concentration that you could put on it, but then you have a shorter time frame. So it would need to be a project that you could accomplish. You know, maybe you have a project you've been working on. If you just need that extra little push, you could get it done this summer. So let's see, and also some types of field work, you need the summer season to have access to unfrozen water, for example, in my own research field. If you choose the summer track, be sure in your application to explain what other summer responsibilities you have. So, you know, if you're teaching a course, obviously you can do that, but that would take away from some of the time you could concentrate to the research. So we would need to know about that. Okay, academic year track. So the advantage of that, you have a longer time frame, and also you have more access to students. A lot of our students disappear in the summer. I heard this morning 90% of our summer enrollment is online, so they wouldn't be here to do research with you necessarily. And then you'd have a longer time frame. Also, if you've already committed to teach 2 courses and organize a conference in Colorado this summer, then you could delay your research until coming back in the fall. Longer, the year-round again gives you even more time. Also allows you to take advantage of if the seasons are important for your project, and you could still hire a student for the summer to assist you. So you need to be strategic. Pick which track fits your project, and be able to describe that, what your timeline is for your project, and how the track you've selected makes the most sense for what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, now I'm going to turn it over to Don.
Next slide for me. In terms of the proposal guidelines, there were 2 documents for you to pick up in the back. If you go to the one that's for this document, it lays this out for you very clearly in bullet points. Let me first suggest that when you complete your application, that you follow these steps and these guidelines in this particular order. And I'm thinking in terms of ease for the research board to see and understand what you're doing. And we've tried to lay this out in a logical format. This is page 2 in this particular handout. So it's easier for us the board to be able to go through and read and understand what you are in fact doing. In the narrative, which is the meat of this, we're trying to limit this to 3 to 5 pages. If you go over that, or I wouldn't suggest going under it, but I don't think you'll be penalized, but we don't want to see a significant overreach in terms of what is put in there. I think you can be succinct, and our experience in the past has been people can do this within those page limitations. The budget area, we follow university policy in terms of budget at all times. So if there's travel, we're going to direct you to the OBFS sites, whatever the hourly rates are, that if you're hiring students, and so we'll make sure that we're following and staying within university policy for all of those. Don't hesitate to call my office to talk about budget, and I will help you walk through this. If there's things that I don't have immediate access to, I can certainly go to Rebecca Jones to work this out and get any things that are maybe slightly out of the ordinary taken care of. So we want to make sure that up front you have a solid budget put together, something that is going to meet your needs and expectations. I would also say when you're doing the budget, tie the information in your budget narrative back to your description of the project, because we want to make sure that it fits, that it supports what you're doing. The other thing is funding is always limited, and even though you can apply up to $5,000, we can't always fund all the projects up to that amount of dollars. And not all projects are typically, we're not able to fund all applications. So we want to make sure that your budget is tight, it meets your needs, and it's linked back in a way that's understandable for research board members to read and see how that budget was going together and how it's going to support your work. You can see from the slide that's up the areas that we have identified that you can write for in contractual. Our student base is $8.25 an hour. We have some faculty that have worked with students over longer periods of time that we can go up some on that salary depending on their experience, and still within the university guidelines as to what's allowable. Travel itemized and based on current state rates. If travel is going to include anything out of country, we'll again take you through to OBFS and look at what those rates and the types of limitations that may be applied for that type of work. Not a lot of money in this for out-of-country travel, but we've had some projects that have gone out-of-country to do the research, and so we'll try to help you out as much as we can in those types of activities. Commodities or supplies, detailed, again, looking to make sure that what you're asking for isn't something that might already be available through the university to other sources and resources. We'll look at helping your budgets in other ways if we can find other resources that would support that. Faculty stipend this year is only for summer work involving students. And this is a little bit of a change from what we've had in the past with the summer part of the projects. Can't exceed the hourly rate for the researcher's salary and cannot be duplicative of stipend or salary already being earned for the same period of time. So if you're on a 12-month contract, or if you're doing extra work during the summer, and as Keenan pointed out, we need to know what that is up front, so to explain that in more projects. So it's linked again back to what we're looking at for the budget. And then any equipment needs to be itemized with as accurate a price as you can provide, at least at the time that the budget is being prepared. References, if they're applicable, we would want to see those things that are related to the work that you're planning on doing. The 2-page vita that we're asking for, we are asking you to limit that to 2 pages. Ideally, any publications or activities that are relevant to your proposed project. And we'd like to see at least some evidence of the way it's tied to your current scholarly research if possible. Now, that said, this may be a new initiative or a new direction that you're moving off in, and you may not have much to put in here in terms of publications or activities. explain that in your narrative. That's go back to the narrative is a good place to explain that link to this part of your application. Think of the application as a complete document, not just pieces. So we're looking for a good flow of the information as you go through and put your application together. Okay. Funding support for this project does come from the general fund, and that is limited each year as to what's available after other budgetary needs have been met. So we sometimes don't really know until we get to the point of submitting these for recommendations for approval, exactly how much money is available, and that often takes us back to looking at where we might be able to still support some projects, but maybe not at the $5,000 level as well. The UIS Research Board does review the applications, and they do recommend funding of the projects. So the funding aspect of this is part of that discussion, part of the review that we go through. And again, we pointed out that not all projects are going to be funded. The research board is composed of across disciplines. We want to make sure that there's representation across the colleges, so not all the members are going to be familiar with the kind of research or work that you're doing. So make sure that in the course of your descriptors, make it understandable, kind of lean toward writing to a lay person rather than necessarily for all the technical data or jargon that might go in there. Don't assume the research board's familiar with any of your scholarly history. Now, that said, there's typically at least one member of the research board that will have some knowledge of what you're doing. And they add a richness to the discussion when the research board meets to help further explain and understand some of the work that's been done. Now, if you're new to the university and you're not going to have much of that type of history there, it's not going to be a deterrent. It's not something that is used to make those decisions. It just adds to the discussion and the understanding that board members have when it comes down to the more technical aspects of the project.
Yes, I want to reiterate what Don was saying, that we want to see new initiatives and new projects. So if you're new to the university, you won't have a big scholarly history at UIS, but that's not going to be a detriment because that's one of our focuses. On the other hand, if you're been here a while and you just need a push to get that final piece in so you can publish, we're also very interested in that. So either end of the spectrum will be good. I just want to go over the submission process. All of this is in the handout, but again, since some of this is new, I want to emphasize it. So this year it's all electronic. It all goes to Don's inbox, so be sure to apply early and often to fill that up. But so a single document, there's multiple pieces, right? The basic, the narrative, the budget, the references, the CV. If you were doing a joint project, then you need 2 CVs, both people, or 3, or how many people are on the project. But then that all needs to be one electronic document sent by email by the deadline. Now the deans are going to continue to be involved in the review process. So what's going to happen is the document comes to our office and then we send it to the appropriate dean. The deans are going to review in terms of approve or not approve. So they're not going to be doing ranking. So if there's many applications from your college, that's not going to, at least not, yeah, it shouldn't penalize you. And then after the deans forward their approval, then the research board will review proposals. And what we'll do is, as Don said, we have representation on the research board. You can look at the webpage and see who's on there from each of the colleges, from staff. And so we'll divvy up the proposals and give, someone with some familiarity with your field will kind of be the lead reviewer to help lead the discussions. Then they send a recommendation to me, and I will make the awards as funds are available. And my philosophy, you can ask for up to 5,000. If you don't need 5,000, your budget needs to reflect what you actually need. We might have to trim your budget to be able to give you any money, but my philosophy is that we'll try to see if there's other sources, because I know personally I had my budget cut so that I only could get half an airplane ticket, so that defeated the whole project, right? So we have to try to balance the funds that are available and the need and make sure you can still do your project.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Speaking of the number of the sort of the faculty members in the project, is there a specific sort of criteria of maximum faculty member can be involved in a project? Like 2 or 3 is?
No, there's no advantage or disadvantage of having a team project.
Right.
If it makes sense to include a faculty member because they have statistics expertise and that could help you analyze data, then that would make sense. Yeah.
Right, because I think the university is trying to encourage the cross-department collaboration. So 2 or 3 is, I think, is reasonable.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. Yep.
Thanks.
So all 3 tracks have the same deadline, which is Friday after spring break by 4 p.m. electronically to us. Then we send it to the deans, and they send forward their reviews to us by April 4th, and then the research board meets and will make the decisions and let you know by April 27th. Now I know that's challenging if you're going to start May 17th and you want to hire a student, but that's the time frame we have in terms of our semester structure. So while the submission deadline is the same, the 3 tracks have different reporting deadlines. So if you choose the summer deadline or summer track, you actually have 2 deadlines because summer crosses the university's fiscal year, and so you have to spend whatever money you spend the first part of the summer. You have to report, or else you will not get reimbursed. I personally experienced this last year, so I want to emphasize, make sure everyone is aware of this. There is a deadline because of the fiscal year, because we're going to use money, 2018 money, that we have to spend by June 30th. And then the final spend date, since it's a summer project, that you have to have all your funds spent by the end of the summer, and then there'll be a report to the research board by December 1st. If you choose the academic year, there are 2 reporting deadlines. There's going to be a mid-year December 1st report, it's a progress report, and then a final report in June. And year-round, you have multiple reporting deadlines because you've crossed the fiscal year, so you have to report your spending at the end of June. Then you have a mid-year progress report in December, and then you have the final report and spending in the end of May. So it's complicated. It's in the handout. It's on this slide. You can ask questions if you want explanations why I came up with these dates. I can try to explain it, but some of it is out of my hands. It's the OVFS rules and stuff.
Keenan, are there rules about so you have the first spend date and the second spend date? Are you supposed to spend a certain amount by the first spend date, or
it doesn't matter,
okay.
Right? So if you have a summer project and maybe it's front loaded, you have to buy a bunch of chemicals, so you spend a bunch right at the beginning. That's
okay.
fine.
So there's no rules about that though. a certain percentage, right?
Yep. So this concludes the formal presentation. We're open for questions, discussion. Do you see?
I admit I'm specifically interested in the Moy grant, but I think the rules would be the same
okay.
here. I think the Moy grant is a